Yeah, hello and welcome to a new semester. And here we are at Object-Oriented Programming 1, or some of you also in the German version, Objektorientierte Programmierung 1. This is the kickoff, and today we also have the first lecture after the kickoff. The kickoff will take approximately an hour. Then we have a short break, and then we start with the first lecture. Is the audio good for you? Is it too loud? It's good? Okay, yeah. Yeah, let's start with some organizational methods. And in the beginning, I think most of you know us already, but we start with a short introduction of us. My name is David. I am at the HCC Institute. I'm currently in my PhD and lecturing this course, Object-Oriented Programming and Introduction to Structured Programming, together with Lucas and with Sebastian. Lucas, maybe you can want to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, also from my side, I'm Lucas. You probably know me from ISP as well. And I'm employed at the same institute as David as a senior lecturer. And I'm involved in ISP as well as Object-Oriented Programming oder Objektorientierte Programmierung 1, as David already mentioned.
Yeah, and we also have Sebastian sitting here. He will hold then the first lecture, and maybe then he will introduce himself. But of course, I think most of you know him also from project management and also from ISP. We also have a large group of teaching assistants, of course, and we have two teaching assistants which are holding the practicals, Julia and Tanya. I think you also maybe know them from ISP. And we also have a lot of teaching assistants in addition, holding the assignment interviews and so on. So let's start with some general information about the course. So this now is the kickoff, and we are talking about how this course is structured, how you get your points, how to get in contact with us, and so on. As I said, the first hour approximately, and then we start with the content of the first lecture. So if you already did ISP, you know most of our infrastructure. So we have our official course website. You have here a split when you go to coding.theograz.at between ISP and OOP1. You have all the videos inside. So this is again similar to ISP recorded. We put on the slides to the website. We have a Teach Center course for all the registrations for homeworks and assignment interviews. We have the same Discord server as in ISP, so if you're not joined already, use this QR code to join. There we can answer your questions. We send out reminder and announcements for assignment interviews and so on. So that's a pretty cool addition, I would say. If you want to ask questions, get in touch with us or with the tutors, and also follow some announcements.
Maybe one remark, that some of our platforms are hosted externally. So the usage is optional, but we highly recommend to use all our platforms. Since many questions are answered on Discord. So this is a platform we highly recommend to use when you do this.
Yeah, I think we have very high answer rate, or very fast answer rate. Most of the questions will be answered in the next few minutes. We also have some tutors that are awake at 3 a.m. and they still answer them. So it's pretty cool to use Discord. So if you have any questions, that's the first thing you can use for questions. And that brings me already to the next slide. This course had us 3 lecturers. We have 10 teaching assistants, and we have more than 500 students. So that's a pretty large one, which means we need to stick to some kind of order if you have questions. As I said, first thing for you would be Discord, because then it's easy for us to answer. All our teaching assistants are on Discord. There you can ask your question, and we are very fast to answer them. If you have any other questions, you can of course also come after the lecture or after the practicals to us, then we can also discuss that. You can also of course ask your tutor, or you can of course go to question hour for assignments. And please only if you have some personal concerns which we cannot discuss during the lecture or at question hours or whatever, then please write us an email. But we had some semesters where students, like we had 100 emails a week, and that's very, very hard for us to handle. So please stick to this. If you have questions from general concern, go to Discord, come to us, ask the tutor, or ask at the question hour. And if we're still not able to resolve the question, then of course you can always write us an email. Okay, so the lecture and the practicals in general are held here in the lecture hall I-13. Similar to ISB, we are recording the lectures, so they are uploaded to Tube and to our YouTube site. There is no compulsory attendance, so you don't have to be here, but we highly recommend that, similar to ISB. Being here and follow us is maybe the best way to learn programming. Of course, you need to practice on your own, but watching and rewatching or watching 2 weeks later is not the best way to learn, because then you have a hard time to catch up and fall behind. And we have a pilot phase of a student tracking system of attendance. This does not mean that you need to be here, but it's kind of a test if this works. Maybe you also know it already from other courses, but we want to try this. So use this QR code. It depends if you are in object-oriented programming or in object-orientierte Programmierung.
We have to switch to check-in, right?
Okay, yeah, thank you. And this, okay, now it should work. As I said, this is a pilot phase, so we are currently testing this. This tracks how many students are here, and this is a very, very new system. We don't, as I said, there is no mandatory attendance, so it's.
So this has no influence on your grade.
Yeah.
So this is just a pilot phase to test this system, but it has no effect on your final grade.
And we are a very, very large course, so the developers asked us to try this, because if it works for so many students, then it will also work for smaller courses. So please register here. I think only one of the 2 QR codes work for you, depending if you're registered for the English version or the German version. So new curriculum or old curriculum. I will let this for, let's say, another few seconds. I also saw that the time here is incorrect. We also mentioned that already. Yes. Very, very good question. Why do we want to track the attendance? So, honestly, we don't want to track the attendance. The Dean of Studies asked us to track attendance because we generally want to know how many students come to lectures and come to practicals. We are not interested in tracking you and then, for example, if we want to grade you, we see how often did you participate. That's not in our interest. Yeah, we just want to know how many students are here and how students in general behave. Let's say we have a drop at lecture 4, yeah, from 200 attendance to 20. There is an issue for whatever reason, and we have to look into that. So that's why we want to track how many students are here. So don't fear that we will use it for any grading or whatever. Okay.
Are you already registered for Object-Oriented Programming 1 or Objektorientierte Programmierung 1?
Okay.
For the practicals, for the KU? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so this only works if you're registered for the practicals. Yeah. But thanks for letting us know. Yeah, that would be important information too.
Are there further issues with checking in? Maybe could you raise your hands for those who it's not working? Okay, just a few.
One more thing to mention. I think most of you use the Studo app, and Studo also has this QR code scanner implemented in the menu bar. And if you open your Studo app, click on the top left on this burger menu, and there is a menu called QR code scanning, and then you can also scan this QR code, which does not require you to log in. That's a benefit from Studo, otherwise you have to log in into the system.
But a requirement is that you are already registered for the practicals of Object-Oriented Programming 1 on the left side or Objektorientierte Programmierung 1 on the right side.
There's a question, yeah. Yeah, good question. Is there a difference between these two courses? No, it's completely the same course, also the same ECTS. The thing is, we need to offer both because some of you are in the old curriculum and some of you are in a new curriculum. So this German version is for the old curriculum, so that you still can just register for the course and get it directly into your study system. The new version is for everybody who started last semester with the new curriculum, but it's completely the same course. Everything is really the same.
Okay.
Okay, then I think we can go back to the slides. So thank you for participating. Yeah. So usually we have our practicals before our lecture, again similar to ISP. We start on Thursday. In this case, it's 4 p.m. to 5:15, and then there's a 10 to 15 minutes break, and then we have the lecture on Thursdays from 5:30 until 7 p.m. There are some exceptions, we'll come to that. Today is one of the exceptions, but we will offer you also a schedule where you can see how and when our practicals and lecture is. One very important question, which often was asked in the previous years, can I do object-oriented programming even though I have not passed ISP? And the answer is yes, you can. We highly recommend you to at least participate in ISP, but it's not really required. And we assume here in this course that you know at least the concepts of C. So, of course, loops, conditions, yeah. Pointers would be good to understand. Structs would be very, very important. But it's not a requirement that you really pass ISP. Yeah? You can also do ISP and OOP1 in the same semester if you're retaking ISP. So ISP, the practicals, is also offered in the summer semester, and OOP1 is also offered as the practical version in the winter semester. So if you are failing in one of these courses, you can try it in the next semester. Okay.
Yeah, something we, I think, did not mention until now is that in this course, Object-Oriented Programming 1, we provide you the concepts of object-oriented programming and we use the programming language C++. But the question is now, why do we use C++? What are the advantages? And yeah, why should we take this course? Let's have a look. So OOP1 is when we look at our study plan, the foundation for further upcoming courses, such as Object-Oriented Programming 2, and also system-level programming and further courses like operating systems.
Yeah, operating systems is very important because it's basically writing an operating system in C++.
One of the hardest courses maybe in the whole bachelor's.
Yeah.
And then computer graphics and computer vision, to just mention a few. But this is just related to your study plan, but there are also further opportunities when you look at your further career. So maybe let's have a look at the usage of programming languages. Although this is the numbers from last year, we can see that Python takes the lead, but then C++ follows. And if we, for example, take the whole C family with C++, C and C# together, this would be then on top. So it's one of the most used languages at all still. And as I said, with a good foundation and many advantages. So what are the advantages? So C++ is similar to C, a very efficient and fast language, and it has a big community. It exists a long time now, and the community gets bigger and bigger. And we also have here the link for the C++ reference, where you always can have a look at the documentation about C++, all the functions and libraries you can use. And as I mentioned, it offers you great career opportunities. And to just show you a few examples where C++ is used, we can see here some very well-known programs like Photoshop, Spotify, YouTube, and also some operating system where this language was used to implement it because of its high efficiency. So regarding efficiency, it has often advantages to other languages like, for example, Python.
Okay.
I think we can then talk about the lecture part.
So there are two main parts of this course. They are kind of separated, but they belong together. The first one is the lecture. The second one is the practical part. You get different grades, So, but we kind of connect them in a way that they're combined because it makes sense to take both in the same semester. We are teaching you in the lecture the basics of C++, and in the practicals you then apply all these concepts learned in the lecture. Yes, there's a question. Sorry, once again? Why not doing a VO? That's a good question. I think it was a VO some years ago. The advantage for you is that if you have two different grades, you can fail one part and still pass the other one. At the VO, it would be just one grade. So let's say you fail one part and you fail the whole course. If you here fail the practicals, you still can do the lecture part during the exam, and at least you have the exam, so the lecture part, ECTS, and then you can retake just the practical part. So splitting it into smaller components with less ECTS means that you can pass one part and retake maybe another one instead of doing all of it once again.
It's just an advantage for you.
Yeah, I think so.
But it's also not in our hands. So this is, we are just here referring to the study plan, which says it has to be a VO and a KU. But we think this is just an advantage for you.
Okay, so let's talk about the lecture. The lecture is usually very shortly explained. We are meeting here every first day from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the lecture hall. We are talking about the concepts about C++ programming here. We already introduced ourselves, David, Lucas, and Sebastian. And how to pass this lecture, it's pretty straightforward. It's just passing the exam. just passing the exam. I know passing the exam might be hard, but it's just this one component you have to pass. It's the exam at 3 times in the semester we offer the exam. So choose one exam date in the TU Graz Online that suits you best. We have 2 different options of the exam. As you already might know from ISB, we have this bring your own device option, where you can write the exam on your own computer. The only requirement is that you have a Windows or a Mac OS, because we are using the Safe Exam browser, which cannot be installed on Linux, unfortunately. That's why we have the second option, the equipped computer rooms, or the Lehrsäle in German, where you can also write the exam on our Windows devices of the university, and that's mainly for students using Linux system. And here we also have this Safe Exam browser installed. There are 3 possibilities this semester to pass the exam. The first one is at the end of March, so I think it's in 3 weeks, approximately 3 to 4 weeks. Then we have one in the beginning of June and one in the beginning of July. We will be finished with the lecture part, I think the mid of May. So already the first in June, so the second one here, this one, would also fit if you want to listen to all the lectures and then do the exam. This first one here, so at the end of March, is basically for students from previous semester. So if you are taking the course now for the first time, this one might be too early for you. Okay, any questions to the lecture part? Very, very similar to other lectures. Yeah, of course, we also have a grading scheme that's also similar to all the other grading schemes. Okay, that was it already for the lecture part. Now it's getting a bit more complicated. We're talking about the practical part. So the practicals are, again, on first days from 4 p.m. to 5:15 here at the lecture hall. So before the lecture, we have the practical part and we have a 10 minutes break. What are we doing in the practicals? We are exercising programming. So things we introduce here in the lecture are then applied in the practical part. Julia and Tanya will hold these practicals here every first day. And how to pass it, that's a bit more complicated because there are many different activities over the semester, pretty similar to ISB. Okay, so what are these components you have to pass for OOP1, for the practicals part? We have 3 homework. Yeah, so homework is always individual work. And then we have 3 assignments. Assignments is, again, similar to ISB, the larger part where you write your own programs. But there's one difference here. Assignment 1 is, again, individual work. Here, you do it alone. And then we will form teams of 3 people for assignment 2 and assignment 3. Okay, let's talk about the homework first. So the homework is, less than the assignments. It's 2 to 4 points per homework. We have overall 100 points. So this is just to work a little bit with specific and specialized tools and concepts. Their submission is always in the Teach Center, and they're pretty similar to the ISB homework you already did, or most of you already did. So I think the first homework will also then be released already next week. So you have then 2 weeks, no, not really, 1.5 weeks for the first, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks, 2 weeks for homework 1, which basically introduces you a bit into object-oriented programming and into C++. Then the second homework is in April, and the last one then is at the end of May.
A total of 8 points.
Yeah.
So the first 2 homeworks are worth 2 points each, and then the third one is a bit bigger with 4 points.
Yeah. Yes. We will talk about the team assignment shortly, yeah. So that's the homework part. The maybe more important and interesting part for you all is the assignment part because it possesses much more points. This is kind of a timeline how the assignments work. So we are currently at the semester start, and we start obviously with assignment 1. Then there will be an assignment 1 interview. Then we have our team selection. Team selection, we will talk about that shortly. Then we have assignment 2 and assignment 2 interviews. And then there is one specific new thing. You can decide if you want to correct your assignment 2 or go to assignment 3. That's your decision as a team, but I will discuss that in the next few slides. Okay, so assignment 1 will be presented in 2 weeks. On the 19th of March, the deadline is then, I think it's after Easter, so there's the Easter break in between, yes. And in the middle of April is the deadline. It's individual work, and there's one specification here and requirement. So you need, again, 50% of the public test cases to continue the course. Otherwise, you get deregistrated, which means you are not getting a 5, so a negative grade, you just get no grade. Believe me, this 50% of the public test cases, again, we have 50% public test cases, 50% private test cases. So overall, you need to pass 25% of the test cases. That's doable for work 1 month on the assignment. Yeah, we do this because we then go to the team selection. And we don't want to have students team up with other students that there are huge differences in their skills. Yeah. So if you only pass 1 test case, for example, of 20 in the first assignment, and you then team up with other students who have all the test cases, that's maybe not a good group composition. That's why we have this kind of a border where we say you need to have at least 50% of the public test cases. Otherwise, it would not really make sense to continue the course. Okay, then there will be an assignment interview after assignment 1. This is mandatory to get points for assignment 1, as for all the other assignment interviews. And there will be no interview, really. There will be just a coding task for you at this interview, and we will have 2 to 3 dates in the following week after the deadline, where you have this in-person coding task in the Safe Exam browser. When you did ISP, it's pretty similar to the coding task in the assignment 4 interview. Yeah. Again, there is no oral interview, it's just a coding task where you show that you really did assignment 1 on your own. Okay, after assignment 1, we are going to assignment 2 and assignment 3, and that means that we're going to a team phase. So you can select teams and you can self-select teams. So you can say with who you want to participate, and you can register for a team if you maybe already have colleagues you want to work with. We don't want to randomly shuffle them and assign them to groups. We want you to work as good as you can. And I think if you are a team already of 2 to 3 colleagues, then it would make sense to team up. So very, very important in this phase is, as soon as you're registering for the team, you will definitely get a grade. You can do assignment 1, you can also do the assignment 1 interview. If you don't want to continue the course for whatever reason, don't register for a team, then you will get deregistered, so you will not get a grade. As soon as you're registering for a team, we say that's now a real attempt for you, and you will definitely get a grade. We also do that because we don't want students to decide in assignment 2 to not continue, because then you leave your other 2 colleagues alone, and that's what we don't want. So we want to have functional working groups and not groups with many problems where students leaving. That's why we say as soon as you're registering for a team, you really commit to this course, and please then also do it until the end. Okay, then you're a team. You go to assignment 2, which is then the kickoff at the 23rd of April. And there's one new thing here, which is called design discussion. So assignment 2 is by far the largest part of this course. I think it had 58 points of 100. So that's the largest part of it. And that also means it's a very, very large project you will implement as a group of 3 students. And to help you a bit how to structure this large program, we demand a design document where you give or where you write down how you want to create your program. So kind of a draft of your classes, of your components in your program, and how you want to structure your assignment. And then we have design discussions where a tutor and I think 3 or 4 groups sit together in a room and discuss the different ideas, how to do the task and how to accomplish it, what are good ideas, what are not so good ideas. Tutors are usually very, very helpful here and tell you if you're on the wrong track of implementation, then they will give you some hints into the right direction. Otherwise, we sometimes had teams who had an interesting concept, but they implemented it in a way that's so complicated that it's, at the end, it was nearly impossible to, for example, play the game they had to implement or whatever. It was just a wrong track they took at some point, and that's why we introduced these design discussions, because the tutor can give you feedback on your idea of implementation, and then you can start programming, and then you have around 3 weeks to do the assignment 2. Again, there is also an assignment interview after assignment 2, which is mandatory for all team members to participate. Otherwise, the person who is not attending will not get points on the assignment. The assignment, as I said, is 58 points worth, so that's basically not attending the assignment interview means you're failing the course. Yes, there is a question. Is the interview together or separate? Both. Yeah, there's a part where you discuss as a group your implementation, but there will also be individual questions. Yeah, so there will also be again some coding task, which of course you implement on your own. So everybody has to know the complete code base, also the code written by other colleagues. And you can get questions from any code in any file of your program. And it's not an excuse to say, I didn't wrote this, that's from my colleague. So you have to know all the code your group produces. Okay. And the tutors will ask questions again, as I said, individually, but also as a group. And you have to explain your code and write some code. And then we have an interesting phase after assignment 2. And you can decide as a team now If you have less than 50% of the assignment 2 test cases, we highly recommend to do assignment 2 again. We call this assignment 2 correction. Otherwise, if you have less than 50% of the test cases, you might fail the course because you have just 2 less points. If you have more or equal to 50% of all the test cases, you have the choice of doing the correction again. So maybe you want to have like more percent of the test cases and you can restart again, or doing assignment 3. But we highly recommend you to do assignment 3 only if you have more than 70% of the assignment 2 test cases, because assignment 3 highly builds on assignment 2. It's basically doing more on your assignment 2 implementation, and this only makes sense if your assignment 2 implementation really works. But there's a third choice. You can also say, I don't want to do the assignment 2 correction, or I don't also want not to do assignment 3. I just skip this, quit here. I already have enough points. That's okay for us. Yeah, you can decide here. There's a decision deadline,
yes, yeah. That's quite important. So the deadline for this decision is the same deadline as for A2. So with the deadline for A2, you already have to commit your decision.
Yeah. That's not too hard because at the deadline of assignment 2, you know how many test cases you pass because you see it in the test system. And we just want you to let us know if you want to do this correction, if you want to continue going to assignment 3, or if you just say, I don't want to continue. So I'm just happy with the points I've collected. Yes? Yeah, that's a good question. Of course, you can get deductions at the assignment interview, which would mean that you then fail. I don't know how we handled this last year.
Could be the case.
It could be the case, yeah.
So it's not really a recommendation to go with choice 3. It is an opportunity, but we would not recommend to do it because there is this risk of failing because of deduction points within the assignment interview.
So the logical answer is choosing 2 and then not doing 3 if you manage to invest in 2. Right?
So it depends on what you want to do. So if you say you want to correct your assignment 2, yeah, and then you decide you're not correcting it, that's basically no real difference to choice 3, yeah. Yeah. But if you're confident enough, you can also choose number 3 here.
So you do not have to commit anything after the A2 deadline. If you say you're fine with your points and you think you won't get any deductions, then you can go with choice 3 and do not submit anything further.
Any other question? Yes. Yeah, so the question is there a necessary condition to pass A2? Yes, there is one. I don't have it exactly in mind how much it is. I think it is again 50%, but we'll come to that. Yeah. Yeah, as I said, then in the last phase you have this assignment 2 correction or assignment 3. You cannot do both, so you have to decide assignment 2 correction or assignment 3. Why does this work? Because assignment 3 is only worth 14 points, I think.
14, yes.
14 points.
But we'll come to that later.
Yeah. So if you decide to do the correction, you can reach 14 points less overall. But of course, if you, assignment 2 has 58 points, so you can get a good grade here, maybe not the best grade, but you can still improve a lot, depending on how many test cases you have at a deadline. Okay, this is a very, very high recommendation. Have a look at this guide for the practicals we have on our website. I will open that shortly because all I have talked about now is also here summarized. So we have the assignment 1 points, we have here a description, what it is, what does it include. We have also here the schedulers, then linked as soon as we are there. So for the assignment 2, and then decide as a team, do the assignment 3 or do the assignment 2, a correction again. Here we have this minimum requirement of assignment 2. So you have to have at least 50% of all assignment 2 test cases, and you have to pass a test case marked with minimum requirement. Then you can do the assignment 3. That's because it's sometimes very, very hard to structure test cases in a way to test everything we want to test. But it's not too easy for you to jump over the border of the 50%. So we mark one test case as minimum requirement, and where we just enter all the things we want you to know and which should work in your implementation. And if that test case work, we are very, very confident that your implementation fulfills our minimal requirements to go to assignment 3. We will release the assignment description, as I said, for assignment 1, it's in 2 weeks. And then in the mid of April, it's for assignment 2. And assignment 3 is then, I think 1 week, 3 weeks later. Something. I think it should be also somewhere mentioned here. Yeah, this is again just an overview of what we have talked about, different paths you can go to no grade, to pass the course, to fail the course, or whatever. So have a look at that if you have any questions, and of course you can also ask us Discord. Here we have also some sub-pages. The structure, the assessment of assignments is also linked here, which basically includes the points you will get, so functionality points, memory management, deductions, and so on. Just read through that. Many of the things are very, very similar to ISB, and the things that are not similar to ISB are marked here with this new. So if you did ISB, just have a look at these new things here. All the other stuff is pretty similar to the ISB coding standard. Okay, so in the practicals overall, as I said, we have free homework, 2 to 4 points for the homework. Assignment 1 is 20 points, assignment 2 is 58 points, assignment 3 is 14 points. Altogether, it's 100 points. So yeah, that's how we structure. And as you can see, assignment 2 is the main component. So please focus on that. That assignment decides if you pass or fail the course.
And again, the minimum requirement is necessary because A3 is some kind of just an extension to A2. So it's not a completely new assignment. As David mentioned, it's more or less an extension, and therefore it makes sense that your A2 has some minimum functionalities so that you can go on with the extension A3.
And that's also, so this high number here of points for assignment 2 is also the reason why we offer you a correction, because obviously there can be something wrong, you cannot finish it for whatever reason. That's why we say we give you another chance. Instead of doing assignment 3, just do assignment 2 once again and correct your points, hopefully getting more points. Okay, yeah, this is just the grading scheme as similar to the practicals part, depending on the points, you get then the grade. Okay, so the points at the assignments, I already showed you that the assessment of assignments here in the, so this page here on our course website. So this is basically just a summary of it. There are functionality points, so the number of the past test cases. There is, for assignment 2, a code quality requirement. So similar to ISB, your code should be structured in a nice way. It should have the style we want you to have and the structure. For assignment 1, we don't demand code quality. We think that you hopefully already learned how to program in a nice way in ISB. So for assignment 1 is the points 100% based on the functionality, so the test cases. And assignment 2, if you work together, we want you to stick to some code quality and stick to some coding guidelines again, otherwise it will be a mess for your colleagues. That's why we introduce here again the code quality. So we already had a few years ago some students who really programmed like a mess and their colleagues were freaking out. So that's why we introduced that again, for your own kind of safety and safe for frustration. Okay. Very, very important now, but don't be scared for the next slide. Plagiarism. I personally don't like this page, but we always have to show it because if you copy from any resource, any colleague or whatever, this means that you submit something which we think is your work, but maybe it's the work from somebody else. And we here at the university are very, very strict to that. Plagiarism is a serious topic. Maybe you hear it sometimes in the media. There's again people who get their PhD deducted or whatever because they did plagiarism in their dissertation. So we don't want to tolerate that. We want to learn you that it's not good practice to copy code from other sources and pretending that it's your code. And so if we identified that, we will report that to the Dean of Studies and you will get this attempt of cheating grade. One very, very important remark here, if you use ChatGPT, Copilot, or any other LLM, this for us seems as, again, the same plagiarism because maybe it's not another natural person, but you're copying code from a source that you're not you and you're pretending it's your solution, which means it's plagiarism. So I have one example here. Let's say we have this AI somewhere in the cloud and we have Bob who uses GenAI to generate code for some subtask, maybe a function for assignment 1. And then we have Alice who uses also GenAI to generate code for, unfortunately, same subtask for assignment 1. So we have these two students and then we have us instructors. We are looking at the code of Bob, we are looking at the code of Alice. We see some similarities. So for us, it seems that they work together because they copied from the same source. For example, it looks something like this. So we have here pretty similar structure of working with CSV files. And as you might see, there are some similarities inside, unless there are different in, for example, the naming of variables, but they use the same the same structure, the same white spaces, the same empty lines, maybe also the same comments. And this is then, so if we have just this one section, okay, we can say that it's unlucky, but it could happen. Yeah.
Could be a coincidence.
But if we have multiple of such very, very similar sections in the code, that would then mean these two worked somehow together. Maybe they worked not together, they had it from a different source, from a third party, in this case, some GenAI tool, but we only see these two code bases. They look pretty similar. And if I give you this task of implementing this, there are like, I don't know, thousands of ways to implement just this 20 lines of code. But having this similarity is very, very unusual. So this is the situation we are facing all the time. We don't like it, but we have to be very, very strict here. So bottom line, please don't copy from GenAI or other persons. How can you now avoid such plagiarism? If you take code from other resources, please cite it. We have requirements here linked. I can click on that. How to cite if you take something from external sources. Oh, it's not here anymore. Okay, I think we moved that to another. We will show you that in the next time, and we link that correctly. But there is always a begin section and an end section, and in the middle, this is the code you have taken from an external source. We do not allow you to have more than 20% of your code from external sources, because you also have to write code on your own. But if you cite it, you are kind of safe, because you explicitly tell us this is from an external source, and I know that, but I just fell in love with this code segment, and it's so beautiful, and I love it, so I want to implement it in my submission. That's fine for us, but please cite it. If you don't cite it, as I said before, it's kind of plagiarism. Yes?
Does this also apply to code examples we see or learn at the lecture or the practicals?
Does this also apply to code examples we see in the practical lectures? Yes. Please also cite it, because the likelihood that somebody else in the course also used the same code snippet is pretty high, I would say. Hopefully they are following the lecture and the practicals. And then if you stated there, took it from practicals number 8, then we know it, and then it's fine. But if you don't know it, again, you take it from another source. The source code was written by somebody else. So in this case, also please cite it. Yes? How is the 20% calculated? So the 20% is calculated based on the lines, of course, I'm not sure if we count empty lines.
I think if it comes to this border, I think we do not just check the lines, but also the characters, because this makes a difference for sure. I think it depends on the case. So if it comes up to this borderline, we do multiple checks. Okay?
Sorry?
Sure. So at least 80% of the code must be yours. Okay?
Yeah. And the second thing you should do is please never show your code to other students. So don't post it on Discord, WhatsApp, in any WhatsApp group or Telegram, and say, I've solved it like this. So it's very, very likely that the person who didn't solve it already then just took it and try it if it works. And then you have both this plagiarism case, which we don't want. So bottom line, please write your own code. But of course, discussion and exchange of ideas with colleagues, but also with GenAI, is allowed, but please don't write code or let the GenAI write code for you. You can use GenAI, for example, to create examples about a concept, ask questions about concepts, but don't say, this is my description, my task description, generate me the code for that. That's the wrong usage. Yeah.
What happens if one of the team members actually rewrites the code or something like that?
Very, very good question. What happens if one of the team member copies code? And unfortunately, to be honest, we see the final submission and we see that there are 3 people. We don't know who of you put it in. So for your colleagues, that they don't have any troubles, please don't do it. Otherwise, you all 3 are in trouble. Yeah, of course, there are Git commits, and maybe we will have a look into that. But you all 3 will have, of course, this case of we think that there is a plagiarism, and I, to be honest, don't want to have any connection to that. It might be that we can resolve that, but for the sake of your colleagues, please don't let it come to that point that we have to find out who copies it and who enters it and so on. Okay, so what to do next now? I think most of you took the ISP course, and I think most of you also already registered for the lecture and for the practicals in TU Graz Online. If not, it's still open, so please register. And if you have not used GitLab in ISP or in any other course already, please at least log in once if you have never opened it, because when you logged in once, your account is created and then we can give you access to all the assignments. So that's very, very important if you have not already been to gitlab.tugraz.at. And yeah, there are some tips from our side, of course. We highly recommend to attend the lecture and the practicals. And we also linked here, and we, of course, upload the slides afterwards. We linked here some voluntary exercises. There will not be weekly exercises similar to ISP, but these are voluntary exercises which you can do, but it's up to you if you do it or not. We now think that you are in the 2nd semester. Most of you are at least in the 2nd semester. So we want to give you a bit more freedom about what you practice and how you practice. So we give you the opportunity for these voluntary exercises, but we won't check if you really did them as we did it in ISP. Okay, so this is then the overall schedule of the lecture and the practicals for the next few months. As I said in the beginning, most of the time we have the practicals first and then the lecture. As we see here, there are some exceptions. Obviously, today is one exception. We have today the kickoff for the practicals and the lecture part, and then we start with the first lecture, Introduction to C++. There is no practicals today, and there is also no practicals next week. We start with a double lecture next week where we talk about classes. So from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. there are kind of 2 lectures for classes and there are no practicals. Then there is some extra slot on Tuesday for the first practical, and then it starts to be normal. We have here the lecture and the practicals. Okay, then we have again one where we have a double practicals and no lecture. So you also see that when you log into Studio or to your calendar. I checked it and we also already have the exact dates for the practicals and the lecture. So yeah, this is just as an overview. And we also have on our course website, pretty new, and we are proud of that, a better overview of all the components I have talked in the past few minutes. Where is it? It's getting here, yeah. So if you open here this object-oriented programming website, you see here a schedule with all the things you have to consider. So we are currently in the kickoff. There's always the date, there is always the location, the content, and the type. In this case, it's lecture and practicals. We will also link here the slides and the recordings. And then you also see the lectures coming here, the homework, practicals, and so on. You can also filter here, say, okay, let me see a calendar view. Let me have this kind of overview separated by assignments, homework, lectures, and practicals. You can only view the lectures, you can only view the practicals, the homework, the assignment, and also the timeline. So you can also switch between all these, and hopefully this helps you to stay organized in our course. Again, we know that we have many dates, but hopefully this schedule, these different views give you a better idea and overview how our course works, and also do not miss any of the things. Yeah.
Sorry, what is exactly the difference between lectures and practicals? Is there going to be some code writing in the practicals, or what can we expect?
So the difference between the lecture and the practicals is, in the lecture, we are introducing you to concepts. Yeah. For example, when we go back to C, we introduce you the concept of conditions. And then next week in the practicals, the practical team will then implement easy tasks of conditions. Yeah. So they use it, they use this information we already gave to you, and then they really program it in a small example, or show you different things you might or how to apply these concepts then in your code, and how to maybe also use it in your assignments. So the practicals is always kind of applying the concepts were introduced in the previous lecture, the previous week. That's why we always do the practicals first and then the lecture. So the practicals is always reminding you what we have introduced last lecture and applying it. And then the lecture afterwards introduces you to new topics, which will then be, again, shown in the next practicals, next week. And you have this 1 week in between where you hopefully get in touch with the content a bit, yeah? So work a bit with it, and then there is this practical part where you see how this works, or how tutors would use that. Otherwise, we always get the comments of students, why not just have the lecture first and then the practicals? But we think there's just a 10 minutes break in between. Maybe you cannot comprehend what we introduced here, and then you see the implementation of that. And if you miss that day, you miss the whole topic, so the lecture part and the practical part. And if we have it in this context and in this scenario, you have 1 week in between, and you can say, I already heard that. Maybe, hopefully, you also worked a bit with that in this week between, and then you see it in the practicals. That's why we do it like that. Okay. One more thing for everybody who had troubles with creating whatever, let's say, installing Linux or virtual machine or whatever. The study representative offered you help. So I think it's next Wednesday, and then at the end of March, there are 2 dates. You can go there and they help you if you have troubles with your Linux. And if you want to maybe switch from Windows to Linux or have a virtual machine or whatever, go there and they will help you. It's an offer from the student representatives especially for ISP, but also for OOP1, system level programming and OS and so on. So that's just an advertisement for that. Okay. Do you have any questions? I missed that one. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Is there an easy enough file to get a working environment that we can use for assignments, practicals, and also for homework?
So the question is there a recommended environment we're using? So you could use the same virtual machine from ISP. We also linked that on our course website. For us now, I think most of you already have experience at least one semester working with the virtual machine or working in Linux directly. You can decide what you like. We have the constraint similar to ISP. If it works on our test system, it's fine for us. We don't care where you program. You can use a text editor. I would not recommend it, but you can use a text editor. You can use a high-end IDE. You can use Linux. You can use Windows, whatever. But it has to work on our test system. You can see it when you go to our test system and download the artifacts and see how many test cases you passed. That's the indicator for us. If you have any questions or problems, then go please to this event of the student representative. I personally would prefer working on Linux machine, or at least having dual boot, or at least having a Windows subsystem for Linux. But that's because I don't like the virtual machine. So, my computer is not that fast that it can handle the virtual machine. But it's up to you. Any other questions? Okay. If you have questions, of course, you can also ask then in the lecture and as always on Discord. So I think we will do a 10 minutes break and we start at 5:25.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, and then we start with C++.